Well, welcome again, everyone, to today's Insight. We will be talking about the Broadcast Manager. So the Stratum Broadcast Manager essentially allows you to automate the distribution of your data within Stratum, the reports that you have within Stratum. What is Broadcast Manager? Well, we'll get some answers to that question, and we'll talk about the different components of the Broadcast Manager. Actions, groups, schedules, users, what all components of the broadcast manager. So we'll go into more detail about those. We'll take a look at a quick demo, and if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat, or you can always unmute yourself. This is the Stratum Data Hub. So we look at this a lot, right? And this basically just tries to show you what we'll be talking about today and where within the Stratum Data Hub this particular technology, where does that live? Well, it's part of the Access Hub. So as you can see, the email distribution area for the Access Hub, this is getting data out of Stratum. So as you can see, there's many different ways of, on the right-hand side here, of getting data out of Stratum. On the left-hand side, you have different ways of getting data into Stratum. So today we'll be concentrating on the email distribution aspect of the Access Hub, getting data out of Stratum. So what is the Broadcast Manager? It's basically an extension of Stratum. It provides the ability to deliver your Stratum data to all of your users on a scheduled basis. You can leverage the existing views. You can certainly create new ones. All the users and the role security that gets applied. So, you don't have to create a report for every single user, depending on what they want to see. It'll these reports will actually adhere to their roles, so they won't see any sensitive data that you don't want them to see within that report. So you could serve up many users with minimal amounts of reports and let the security do its job. And it's flexible. It's got user controlled scheduling. As long as those schedules are set up properly on the back end, users can then apply more actions, more reports to those existing schedules themselves. So the users can drive a little bit more in terms of managing the actions that they have within Stratum. So we have these actions. So what are they? Well, these basically define the what, who, when, and how these reports get delivered. So essentially, you'll set up the action, and you could be within a view. We'll take a look at this, but you could be within a view, and you can set up an action right there within the view on the right-click menu. And you'll set up, the recipients, who's going to receive this report. You'll be able to assign it to a schedule. There's two different types of actions, and you could set that up as an email or just as a regular Excel file that you could push out to your network. And then you've got groups and schedules that these actions can be plopped into, right? So the action, if you want this thing to run on a scheduled basis, then you could save these actions to the appropriate groups and schedules. And then obviously at that point, then it's scheduled and it will run automatically once it gets applied to a schedule. Report content can be made up of multiple views. So you could have an action that has multiple views in it, and you would dictate whether that's going to be delivered in a single Excel file or multiple Excel files. So there's different options that you can select that will drive that. You can have a file, it can be distributed by email or written to a network folder. You could push it up to a cloud. So that does work. That is something that you can consider. The recipient can be a distributor or somebody on the outside. So there is this concept of a broadcast user so that you can send these reports out to outside users. They do not necessarily have to be a member of your network or your enterprise for that matter. And again, these actions can be scheduled by these users, certainly not by the external users because they can't even get into the product. So don't worry about that. But certain users, they would have the ability to save these actions to the appropriate schedules so that they can schedule it themselves once those schedules are set up. Again, users can schedule their own actions. They can remove or reassign them to different schedules as their needs change. and administrative controls are available to limit a user access to schedules. So you can lock down a schedule if you don't want people to go in inside it, don't want people to change, what's in the schedule. There's certain areas that you can lock down things. The administration of the broadcast manager, again, you'll have these different areas, these different menus that we'll go into, and we'll take a look at how you administer some of this stuff, where you would be able to see some of the log files. So there's been some improvements so that you'll actually get emails of when these things get processed, whether they're successful or not. So there's been some more improvements made to this. Broadcast manager actions can be created by advanced users and administrators. And the action will define what data gets distributed to the users. So let's run a view. We'll take a quick look at how we could set up an action. So here I'm within the Stratum viewer product. If I want to go ahead and run a view here, I can select a view from my left frame menu, in which I'll select comparative sales. So I run a view, and we can see that the view is a product brand view. This might be something that I would like to include into an action. So how would I set up an action so that I can email this report out to users on a scheduled basis? One way to do that would be to right click anywhere within the view, and as you can see, you get an action menu option, and you can display any actions that include this view in case you wanted to know that. And that's not good. Let's try something else. Well, what that should show is the actions that include this view. So there's a different way we can go and look at that. If we want to add an action, we can go into the action menu itself. That works good. So essentially, we can go in and we can give it a different name. So if I wanted to give it a different name for the action, or I can just name it, comparative sales. Just make sure your cursor is there. Report. You can call it whatever you want. You can describe it. So if you wanted to get more about, get into more in terms of what this will be, how it will be delivered, you can use the description area to describe it more. The action itself will be either global or personal. So if you want other folks to see and use this action, or you can make it your own personal action. I'll make mine global. The next option would be to tell it how many users you want it to send it to. So I can go in and I can look for specific user profiles or groups. I could send it to a group of people if I want to. And I could select which users I want to send it to. If I want to use groups, I can go and find the groups that I want to send them to. Once I find the person or the group that I want to send it to, I can then move their name over to the right-hand side. And now they'll be getting this report as well as me. This is the area where you'll tell it what type of action you want to set it to. It can be either an email or a file that you'll push out to the network. We're going to select an email for now. What's the attachment type going to be? Well, by default, it's an Excel file, but you can also include it as an image. It says as text, but it actually takes a picture of the view and it places it as an image within the email. So it's up to you what you want to select there, and we'll stick with the default of Excel. We only have one view in this particular action, so a single file would be appropriate. If we had multiple views here, we could add another view if we wanted to, but we'll keep it a single file for now. This is kind of interesting. If you're sending a lot of data, for instance, if the view is roughly 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 rows or more, you might want to consider Excel data as opposed to Excel report. The Excel data option is quicker. It doesn't include any of the traffic lighting or the row coloring the formatting options. It's just raw data. So it just exports to the and creates the report much quicker than if you were to choose Excel report, which that just includes, that does is what you see was what you get. So you'll get all the fancy looking formatting and whatnot, but it just might take a little longer to render because of all of that. So it's your choice of what you want to do there. And of course you could test it out to see what works best for you. Do I want to include view details? Normally I would turn that on. Reason being is that you'll get more information about the actual view. Any filtering, sorting, would be supplied to you so that you have more information about what the actual data represents. So I always recommend turning that on. So that completes the general area of the action. And then if I come down to the email portion of the action, I can then dictate what the email is going to say. Maybe I want this to say comparative sales report. In the body, please review report, weekly sales report as needed, blah, 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 right? So you'll dictate what you want to say in the body of that email that they'll receive. Do I want to include a link back to the view? So that's a nice convenience. So I'll keep that on. Do I want to send the email when no data exists? So I'll say yes to that for now. But as you can see, I can set up a view that could have a filter on it based on a condition. And if it doesn't get fulfilled, if that condition returns no rows, then feasibly I could turn that off and say, well, no, if this particular view is not going to yield anything, then why would I bother the users? So that predicates the notion of setting up an alert where you can have a view that would abide by a certain filtered condition. And if that filtering condition returns rows, then the email would then get triggered. For instance, invoice or inventory situations where your balances might be approaching safety stock or reorder points. Then you could trigger an email sending off those items to your planners. Or you could have a big order report where open orders comes in and flags an order that is unusually large in size, so that when you receive the alert, you're well alerted to a big order that's looming, so that you can get prepared for it, plan for it, let your plant managers know. Production must know about the demand that was not planned. So, these things, these alerts or these actions can trigger not only just regular, scheduled reporting requirements, but as you can see, you could set these up to alert people on actual data conditions so that they can be more proactive in their business and make their decisions, quicker, be prepared for those big orders, be prepared for those areas where inventory may be short or too much for that matter. It's all based on how you want to set this up. Down here on the bottom, we know that we're going to send the actual comparative sales view. We're actually in it. But if I wanted to add any more views to this action, I could do that on the fly. As you can see, I select the plus sign and I get access to all the views in my library that I can quickly include in this particular action if I wanted to. We'll keep it simple for now. And then if I want to apply this to a group, then I could put it into my daily flash report group, add that in so that now it's going to be scheduled, because I know that that particular group is on a scheduled basis, and I've just added a report to that particular schedule. So this will be sent to me tomorrow in my email packet. If I want to test this out very quickly, I can go ahead and would need to save it first, and then I can go ahead and click on the test button. The processing will take some time. Do you want to continue? So, you're going to get that warning every time you try to run an action. I'm going to go ahead and kick that off, and then we'll get that particular report will come to me here pretty soon. And we'll take a look at it. In the meantime, this is what I got today. There's the ding. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that. So I got two emails. I got one that the actual process completed. So whoever sets up the action, they'll get this email, and they'll also get the actual log file telling them that we did complete successfully. So that's one thing that you'll get. And then the next file will be the actual alert itself, or the report itself. So here's my report. As we can see, it says comparative sales report in the subject title. We can see that in the body, we can see that it's exactly what we typed in there, right? So we have this, this adhered to exactly what we wanted. And then here's my report. So I'm going to go ahead and double click that. As you can see, it puts the date on there for you. Makes it nice and unique to that day. Here comes the report. And there it is. So now we've got our report. And that's exactly what I wanted to send. So as you can see, it retained all of our formatting. We have our traffic lighting conditions that are there. The row coloring options are there. It's a nice looking report. And then if we look at the view detail, we can see that there's no filters. There were 14 rows and nine columns. This file was created on this time. This is the actual view description. So, it doesn't really tell us much, but we do get that link back to the view. So if I wanted to follow that in and run that particular link, it'll actually run. Here it's asking me to re-authenticate. So I'll enter my credentials, and it takes you right into the view. So, if the user wants to step into the view directly from the actual report, we can see that they can do so right there within the actual view detail portion of the report. So we have a live link there back to the view. So feasibly, you can set up, an alerts folder, whereas your users can come in and they can see all the reports that they get from Stratum. You could set up a daily sales report package, such as this one, where I can see that if I open this will show me several, whereas we have several views in the mix here. As you can see, as different tabs within this Excel spreadsheet, I can go to the different reports within this particular packet. And as you can see, this, oh Lord, I hate these menus. This menu's getting in the way. Let me move it. So here we have, as you can see down here on the bottom, the different tabs for the different. So basically, I have 4 different reports here. Well, one has the graphs that come with the report. So essentially, it's 3 reports, right? And that was just one view, right? So, or one action. So you have one action pushing out 3 reports. The links are within the email too. So you can always go back into the view from the email, the body of the email. So in case the attachment doesn't have the link in it, you can always, typically you'll have a link here. You may not, of course, that's a setting that you'll dictate whether the users will get that link or not within their package. So as you can see, I get, different reports throughout the day. Obviously I get the report telling me that the group has run, but I get this daily sales report every day, from from the demo. So this is something that we just let it run, So how do we, get this scheduled on the back end side of things? Well, you'll need to set this up on the server side. So you'll have a command line. Going back to some of the PowerPoint here, we went through the action, we set it up, and you can always go back to your actions. If you come to your hamburger menu and into analyst tools, you'll see under analyst tools that you'll have these different areas to go into. You can see your action, you can see your groups and your schedules. So if I want to see all of my actions, I can do so from the admin utilities menu or from the hamburger menu, depending on what version you're on. And this shows me all the actions that I have within my environment and when the last time it was processed, right? Last process completed, what the status was, are there any errors? And then each action, as you can see, has an ID associated to it as well. If I were to look at my schedule, I can see my other different schedules. I only have a test schedule and then a daily schedule that actually runs at 1 a.m. So if we look at that, if I go into that, we can see that the schedule is tied to 2 groups, daily flash reports and Power BI extracts. So as you can see, you can have multiple groups within a schedule, and certainly you can have more than one schedule, right? The schedule itself will present a ID. So if we go back into this broadcast schedule menu, we can see that each schedule has an ID associated to it. For instance, the daily schedule has an ID of 4. And this is what you'll use to set up the command line on the server to physically set up the schedule. So you would need like a SQL agent, or you can use Windows Task Scheduler. Those are the tools that we typically use to physically set up the command line on the back end so that these things actually run on the server side. So yes, this has to be set. There is some server side component to this so that, the schedules are actually set up on the back end, and, so that they're set up properly and that they actually run, because otherwise, if I don't do that, these won't run. So if you don't have the back end process, the command line set up and scheduled, then obviously these don't run. But once they're set up, as you can see, mine runs every day. So anything or any user that puts anything into that daily schedule, sure enough, rest assured, that thing's going to run and they will receive that report. So that's the gist of it, right? You want to have this ability to set up different schedules. As you can see, they'll show up right here. They'll be available to the users so that the users can take advantage of them. And then once they start creating their actions, it all depends on what schedule and what group that they save their actions to. That will actually dictate when that report will run on a scheduled basis. So, and that's really kind of it. I mean, you just want to make sure that you've got your users are trained on how to set up an action, and whether they want to set up multiple views within the action or not. You might want to just dictate this to your view administrators, so that you don't have everyone out there creating all kinds of different actions. You can create some control over this so that obviously we know that the view administrators and advanced users are the only ones that can create these. So certainly your casual users won't be able to create any actions from scratch as well. So. But yeah, I mean, any view that you have can be set up as an action and can be emailed out or pushed to your network. It's up to you to decide, exactly, what route you want to take for serving up your data to your users. So I guess I can open this up to any questions. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat. You can certainly unmute yourself. This does require a license. So if you're not licensed, but you're interested, that's another conversation we can have too. And you can always contact me as needed. My contact information, you can reach me at adam.kurtz@sylvan.com. And there's my phone number. Give me a call. We can talk about how to set this up and whether you're licensed for it.